Welcome back to Alumni Game, the show where three Gamecocks dive into South Carolina sports, football, hoops, the NCAA, everything that comes along with it.
Where our opinions are never filtered, sometimes reasonable, and always fun.
That's right. You can check out all of those takes that we have on YouTube, Instagram, and wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on all those platforms. Settle in, y'all, and let's get started with this week's episode of Alumni
Game!
Game!
Hey, Gamecock fans. Great to have you back here on Alumni Game. Just me and Sam this week. Buster
Hello.
is on his way to a undisclosed. No, he's on his way to NOLA, and he'll be having some fun down there. Maybe we'll even get some video. We'll see.
Ooh, we would be so
But
lucky.
it's okay. We're just going to unpack this combine. He can always weigh in later. And we'll unpack that from a Gamecock perspective, where things have shifted, improved, worsened for some players. Talk about maybe how many of these Gamecocks are going to get into the NFL on that weekend. And then we will discuss some NFL topics. We're getting into, now that the combine is done, the next event in an NFL world is free agency. Couple of things have popped already, some signings, some trades, some rumors. So we'll get into that. And we'll talk a couple different positions and what some teams are doing. And then we'll kind of tease some stuff on some future episodes too. So let's get into this, Sammy boy. We got this combine. Was a lot of fun. I did get to watch each day. I got to watch some of the stuff and then watch highlights.
What do they have it on? NFL Network? Is that what it's on?
Yeah. That's funny because my wife was asking me the same thing. Like, yeah, it used to always be ESPN and they had the coverage. It's pretty much NFL Network now, and they run it basically all day. And there's some of their stalwart guys doing that, a bunch of their hosts. And they had some guests. At one point I caught David Spade was there pitching a podcast of his with
It's in
Dana Carvey, which sounded fun.
Indianapolis, right? That's where
Yeah,
they have it?
Indianapolis.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
they've always had it there because it's like the middle of the country, right? So everybody can get there sort of equally. It
Well,
usually isn't.
NCAA headquarters are there too.
Yeah, it makes it easy, right? It's the center of the country. So, East Coast time is a little that way, West Coast
Yeah.
time is a little that way there in the middle. And then travel wise, it doesn't necessarily favor anything. Having it in Florida, it'd be hard coming from, Oregon or having it in Texas would be similar to Indianapolis actually. But also the facilities, right? Like Indy is built for this. The
Yeah.
facility there is
It's
massive.
indoor, it's a dome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great indoor. Um, the NFL kind of takes over, and they did some cool stuff this year. They painted a lot of stuff on the field, which I thought they would just do with graphics. So, like when you had a certain drill, it set it on the field what the
Oh
drill
yeah?
was,
Oh, that's kind of cool.
and it's fun seeing these positional coaches too, because they come from different teams and the interactions and the relationships that come out of this. There's a chance that the positional coach that coached you through drills at the combine actually becomes one of your coaches later. So
Yeah.
this stuff goes in sort of the annals of NFL history as 2 years from now, we're talking to a player who's basically an all-star now, or maybe going to a Super Bowl or whatever, like a Jalen Daniels, and maybe we'll hear about some fun stuff from the combine with this or with this. One thing we don't really have that maybe we should, and I'm thinking about it now, is Wonderlic test results because we did get into that a lot, and I do find that to be a lot of fun. So I will Google a little and just see what there is, but if we need more of that, we'll come back with that and figure out.
Can't get
I
enough
don't.
Wonderlic, huh?
What? Well,
You just can't get enough
I'm
of it.
just wondering if I'm still just seeing all time. So I don't know that these scores come out from the combine. Maybe they come out later. So correct me if I'm wrong. Come at me, please. Let us know what you guys want to know, and we'll talk about it. If we do need to do a whole Wonderlic episode, I think we might. But for now, let's keep going. So look, first and foremost, some stats just that we went through last week. They're kind of important. 11 Gamecocks were invited to this combine. That's the most by a long shot. doubled our number from any year since 2013, and put us up there with some of the best teams in college football. So
Really
we
good
were
barometer.
represented.
It's a really good barometer of success and kind of where the program is headed. You know what
Yeah,
I
I think
mean? I think
so.
it's very indicative of the hard work from not only just the players but the coaching staffs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you think about just the numbers of what makes up a NCAA team, 10 or more players is a
Yeah, it's
fairly
wild.
large, to say that they are definitely going to the NFL. Now, we'll unpack that a little bit.
And
Are
the other
all
teams
11
that had
going?
that
We don't
much,
know.
the other teams that had that much, like you said last week, the Blue Bloods, Texas, Georgia,
Ohio State.
Ohio
Yeah.
State, like
All in the
that's good
playoff, all
company.
perennial,
Yep.
all teams we want to be able to beat at some point, especially Georgia if we do get them on a schedule. Texas as well, Texas being the favorite. And, with some of the things we've talked about, less NIL money. Obviously, Texas carrying the most as the average, probably like we said, because of Arch Manning. But with what we have, we're churning out results. I mean, and from a recruiting standpoint, you got to love this. If you don't even really look at Carolina much and you see that 11 guys went to the combine, you want to be one of those guys.
Yeah.
And the only way that you're one of 11 is if you're on one of those teams we mentioned. So, and not to say there aren't other great teams and other barometers of success, and other reasons you want to play somewhere. But this is a good reason to be playing here for sure. On top of a lot of other reasons, like we said, Lenore Sellers and our coach and the atmosphere, we just start to really add up. So yeah, 11 invited, big time number for us. And some of these guys really performed. I mean, we're talking like great performances here at this combine. And there is one individual who we did not spend a lot of time on in our original combine, because we knew he was going to shine.
Yeah, we did.
Um,
We called this last week. We knew it was going to be his day.
yeah, and that's the thing. You call your shot, you don't really be like, oh, I called my shot. Like, did you see me call my shot? But maybe we undersold it because Sammy Boy, this seems to be, one of the bigger stories of the combine, one of the bigger stories. Look, I'm not going to say it eclipses last year because Xavier Worthy setting the 40 record was intense. And then getting him in the Super Bowl with KC that same year as a rookie, that's the story. Look, if Yuri does something like that after what he did in the combine, if he ends up on a team and ends up in the playoffs or pushing them to the Super Bowl, like wow, we'll do an episode on that. But I heard the term all-time combine performance, and I'm just gonna say that because that seems to be the consensus here. And he did work. I mean, he worked at this, and good for him, right? Skipping the bowl game. He did not skip a beat, and he may have even worked harder, even though he wasn't playing in that game. Good for him. We're glad to hear that. I don't want I wouldn't want to hear that he skipped our bowl game and just sat on the couch and then didn't do well in the combine. But what did you think of what we're seeing here from Nick?
Well, I mean, I thought you were going to prep it with some type of what was the shyness star,
Yeah, I
right?
thought
Where's
about
your
it, and then I
getting
droned on,
blind?
and
Well, I had on
I
mine
was
right.
gonna say I was blinded by the light or
Yeah,
something
I was
like
about to say
that.
he channeled his Manfred Mann's inner Earth band is what he did right there, and he was look. We were all blinded by the light. Nikki Eamon Worry, we said it last week that we kind of had a feeling. He said something about to the reporters like, "What do you expect?" Like before the he ran his combine splits and before he worked out, and said he wanted to run a 4.340. He did it 4.3840.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, you just
the
have shades
vertical,
of like Babe Ruth calling a shot. It's like the
right?
same thing, but it's so
40,
much earlier. He's not even in
43,
the league yet.
43-inch vertical. I mean, this is the combine, right? So it's 43-inch vertical, 11'6" standing broad jump. I guess according to NBC Sports, he's the only safety in the history of the combine to run a sub 4.4 second 40.
That's insane. It's crazy.
Post the vertical over 43 inches and a broad jump over 11 feet. And Mel Kiper really likes him. Right now, he bumped him up from like number 27 overall. He's number 2 overall safety, from number 27 overall to like number 11. Right?
I
Like
mean, that's a massive jump.
I mean,
now, granted, look,
we
you and
said
I,
we
know what he
we
can
were,
do. It's just could you measure it on tape? And he did it.
and it's ironic. We bring this play up all the time, but his best play didn't like one of his arguably best play of the year didn't even count because it was that pick six he brought all the way back against LSU, and they called it back from what was it like
Yeah, and I mean, what's
illegal
incredible,
touching
I
the
think,
quarterback?
I think it is an important play because it just shows you his ball skills. And we were talking about this in the prep, and the one thing that I was kind of noting that just flashed to me is that he got a 10 out of 10, not just as a free safety, not just as a strong safety and cornerback, meaning he's got that covered, but then also as a wide receiver, right? Which he is not, but to me brings echoes of what Travis Hunter is bringing to this draft, right?
yeah.
I mean, if in a different scenario, if Yuri was playing in Colorado for that ball coach, he might have played on both sides of the ball. Given that, that's a different style that they play, that Dion is doing something different. He's a younger coach. He's doing something in a different way. But for me, it's like, if I saw that and I see that, could Yuri potentially come in on offense in some way? Maybe. I mean, that's obviously very non-traditional.
I think it's a really bit wishful thinking too, right? Like, I don't know if he's got the hands that Justin Hunter. Like, you can tell. Like, even Warriors.
Yeah, sorry,
like,
Justin Hunter. Yeah.
What did you say? What did you say? Travis Hunter?
Yeah, I said.
Who is Travis Hunter? I'm trying to think of the Travis Hunter. Is it Travis Hunter, Justin Hunter? So if you think about it, he's got the route running capability. He's got the hands as like a wide receiver. No, it is Travis Hunter. I'm pretty
it
sure
is Travis. Yeah.
Justin Hunter was a
a
wide receiver from. He played somewhere. Was it?
Yeah, he played on the
like that?
Steelers for a minute, didn't he?
Yeah, he was on the Steelers, Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. They're both wide receivers. We're allowed a mistake or two.
It's
Buster's
not
not around to call us on it either.
Buster's not around to call us. He's our resident expert. But that's kind of. But I don't think that. I mean, we never see him line up a wide receiver in the slot, right? And I don't know if that's something to do, but that might be wishful thinking. But
yeah, no, I'm thinking
he can do anything right now. This might be the greatest
a
combine
2-point
ever.
play.
Yeah, why not?
Like yeah,
this might be the
fun.
greatest. From what I understand, I don't really watch the combine a whole lot, but I was reading a lot about what people were saying, all the experts on ESPN that we love so much.
Yeah.
This might have been the greatest combine, one of the greatest combine performances of all time. So, Mike, is this the greatest Gamecock combine performance of all time?
I think so. I think even just the measurables, right? That all the way across the board,
that people haven't done since 2003. It's amazing.
He worked so hard on this. He was not going to stand up in front of a microphone and say sub 4.4 and then not do it, right? And so on the front end, it looks like confidence and cockiness, which we know he has from our alma mater. But at the same time, it's like it really was just pure confidence. And he really made good on everything. The idea of skipping the bowl game is you're going to work really hard at the combine. That's your future. You have to work on your future. Well, he did, and he did in spades. And then he did so good, and he did so much that he called a shot, and then he hit his shot. And then on top of that, even just these numbers, I mean, Mel Kiper and the numbers are one thing. You can take them or leave them. But basically going from the bottom of that group to mid in that group to a little higher than that, now that people have had times to adjust, I think, in truth, he might be higher than number 11 on that list. I mean, he graded out higher than anyone else in his position. And he is humble. He's not coming from one of the most massive programs where he's made a ton of NIL money. So he's looking to make money here. And if he can get into the first round like we think he has just gotten himself maybe a 5-year deal and a lot more money.
He's definitely going to be in the first round. I mean, there's just no way around it, right? Like he
was not going into the combine. He was not.
He was kind of on the cusp, right, between a first and second round.
But that's the thing. Being on the cusp of the first round basically means you're not in the first round.
I agree. Listen, we're arguing apples and oranges here, right? Like I agree with you.
Which I will do.
Apples, damn it.
Apples all day. I want my pie. You can't make an orange pie.
But, I mean, he definitely worked his way into being. I mean, some people have him at Jets, take him at number 7. Can you imagine that? He jumps all the way up to number 7 and earns himself about another $10-15 million.
And I mean, everything that goes with that, right? Like, yes, it's the Jets, but now you're in the New York market.
I mean, New York market.
You're getting deals and you're getting commercials.
And you're going to be the 7th highest paid player coming out of college. Like, like you are. Like, if you're going to rank number 7, you're going to be paid.
And probably a key leader on that defense for the next 4 or 5 years.
I just hope he doesn't go to the Ravens, man. If he goes to the Ravens, I'm going to be so sad.
Yeah, that'd be
So,
tough.
so
That'd be tough.
sad.
Yeah, we'll do that. We're still talking combine, but yeah, I think now that you have an idea where he might go, now it just ebbs and flows with what teams are going to do, right? Because like what I was getting at when we were saying fringe first round, well, if you're fringe first round for me, you're not in the first round because some teams are going to make moves and they need to get what they're going to get, and that's probably going to push you down. Usually, right? So at least
It all
that's the way I
depends
see it.
on what on team needs. You're absolutely right. It all depends
But
on team needs
now,
where. But he's solidified. Like
yeah,
any team will take him.
if other players in his position
Absolutely
group
right.
are
Yes.
going and he is sitting there waiting, he is still going in the first round. He ain't
100
sitting so much that he's waiting until day two. Not
it's
at all.
100% right. You're 100%
And I
right
think
there.
he's in terms of all time and all that. Obviously, time will tell. Up until now, for a South Carolina player, yes, best of all time. At this position, maybe also best of all time. Best across the board out of any player of all time. I don't know about
I
that.
mean, yeah, it's tough when you're comparing apples and like different
I
positions,
immediately
you
would
know?
go to Xavier Worthy last year
Yeah.
and say I think his performance was better and at his position and then maybe all time because he set the record too. That's someone has to break that record. Even Yuri did very well, but did not necessarily set records.
Yeah, we'll
You
see
know
if
what I
it
mean?
translates for Worthy. I mean, he had some
I think
success.
I
Well,
I think it already has for Worthy. Geez, by the Super Bowl, he's the number one starter wide receiver on KC.
you talk about him a lot. You love him.
Well, I love the idea that guys can achieve more than they've given. And coming into the NFL, what most everybody saw for Xavier Worthy was speed and speed alone, and could it translate? Now, he got in a lucky situation. He got with one of the better coaches in the league. He got with one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He maybe got with one of the better front offices in the league. And then he got even luckier on his end that almost every wide receiver on that team got hurt. And so he became the guy, but he did achieve, and he looked like a guy who was not only fast, but could learn the playbook quickly as a rookie, a tough playbook with Mahomes and the way he plays, and achieve in the Super Bowl. And I know they lost, but he did a really good job. And those stats may get forgotten because when teams lose the Super Bowl, nobody remembers that stuff. But he earned his spot. And I see him being a key piece with KC for years. Rashi Rice
Yeah.
is still a guy, and they got other guys, but
Well,
that is what it is.
let's pivot back to the Gamecocks here and talk
Oh, for
about
sure,
the next
for sure,
the,
for sure.
another winner that you liked here from. So
Oh, yeah.
we both agree Nicky Minwori, biggest winner, right? From the
Stud.
combine. Yeah,
Stud.
absolutely. But you like somebody else too, right?
Yeah, staying on the defense.
You talked about him a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, my knight in shining armor here, Demetrius Knight, on my chessboard. Another Mel Kiper special. He was very impressed. Quote Mr. Kiper, he was my number 4 entering the week, and after running 4.58 in the 40, he's a clear day 2 pick. So right away, another guy that moved up the board, that did well, in his drills and in the measurements, and at his position, moving up the board and being better in that linebacker position group, yeah, you're going to get drafted. Everybody needs a linebacker. Anybody needs a linebacker, and
He's got the body too of that linebacker position, and he can run.
Yep.
He's got the body. He's a physical tackling machine.
And you could get in the weeds here a little bit, and like we've seen how teams have wanted to pair players together that have played in college, usually on the offensive side of the ball. Like a Burrow, Jamar Chase kind of thing. But it isn't crazy to think if Eamon Yuri moved up that much, and you need a D-back and a linebacker, and you want to put two guys together who know each other and play well together. Oh man, what a tandem that would be.
I've always thought about like front offices that think that way, right? It was clear like the Philadelphia Eagles had a plan like 2 or 3 years ago to just get after Georgia Bulldogs, and they got a ton of them, and they won a Super Bowl. I'm like with you, Mike. I've always wondered what front offices think about getting like, well, we got this one guy and he played really well on the same defense with him, like kind of replicate. I've always wondered about what front offices say or think about that.
And we'll continue to wonder and probably try to answer some of that with our draft episode once we kind of some of this settles and we figure out what teams are trying to do. Like I heard some rumors about what my Pats want to do, but I have no idea. I don't think we're doing Travis Hunter. I think the biggest pillars in this draft obviously going to be the QBs and Hunter, maybe that top wide receiver, and then the tops at these positions. As soon as the top linebackers and defensive backs go off the board, our guys are up, and that's probably still first round. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, having 11 in it gives us a big edge up anyways, but that a bunch of these guys that moved up in the first round starts being like, I'm watching this draft for a lot of reasons, right? I'm watching it because my Pats have a high pick, my wife's Giants have a high pick. There's a lot of Gamecocks in this draft, and it's deep at positions that I love. Like, I love the tight end position. I'm glad that it's deep there. A linebacker is a position that I grew up with, watching guys like Teddy Bruschi. We talk about Troy Polamalu all the time. There are just some positions that are just much more impact, and I feel like this draft has that. Where most people might not watch this because it doesn't have all the quarterbacks. It doesn't have a ton of wide receivers.
People are going to watch the draft. People are going to watch the draft. It doesn't matter.
Oh, they are, yeah.
It doesn't,
and the
that
NFL's
doesn't
made
matter.
a bigger show of it. But
if you're going to watch the draft, you're going to watch the draft. Like, that's just.
But I don't know in terms of all time that it's going to be one of the sort of best drafts. I think we've had a few really big drafts.
No one knows what the best drafts are going to be until it comes out 5 years later.
No,
you know
I know.
I mean?
Yeah, you have to wait.
Even like the whole. Remember, one of the biggest questions when we were growing up was Peyton Manning or Ryan Leaf. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah, we know that now.
Disaster,
Yeah.
Right.
But I also think, like, even now, I think the last couple of years have been massive drafts. I mean, we've seen some huge quarterbacks come out. We've seen some huge wide receivers we know are going to the Hall of Fame already, as long as they stay healthy. And I just feel like that's lulled a bit, and people may think about it this way this year. But Demetrius is doing his thing. Just to round him out, he quote unquote dazzled after running a 4.58, which is still a very good 40-yard dash, and 2 inches shy of a 10-foot broad jump, which is pretty nice. Which is much cooler than saying like 9 and 10 inches. 2 inches shy. I like that better. There's a good spin here. But yeah, both of those guys are going pretty high. We wanted to talk about a truck next, right?
A truck, a Tonka,
a big ass truck, a big honking Tonka truck.
I like that pool right there, the Tonka truck. Another guy that we think actually turned out to be a winner from this combine, Tonka Hemingway. One scout said it was quote one of the most impressive defensive line showings that he's seen. He earned a grade or elite grades on most of the explosion and agility numbers. Looked pretty good in drills. Didn't run the 40, didn't run that, but he did do 33. Yeah. 33 inches on the arms, 9 inches on the hands. The vertical was 32 inches. Broad jump was 9.4, so big boy. We're coming in at 284 pounds, running up almost dunking.
Oh, I was seeing 288, my friend.
288. All right. Yeah, I'm looking at. We'll have to check our sources there. We have.
Yeah, he's bringing 88 back.
We'll have to check Buster there. He's our inside source at.
Yeah, he does all the
game.
measuring. Yeah.
And then he ran the 3 cone at 7.36 seconds. So that just kind of shows a little bit of his pass rushing ability from the defensive line. Still a little bit small, sure. little bit smaller. We had the same knock on him about TJ Sanders, but I think both of those guys played very similar types of from the defensive line. Tonka's probably going to be a 2nd or 3rd day pick. I would imagine.
What do you think NFL teams are looking for there? Close, like 300 on the nose? Like he's small in that way,
I think
or he's small in terms of.
I think it's a little bit of his arms. At 33 is not the biggest. TJ's at like 33, 30 or 38, I think is what he's at. So his arms are a little bit smaller. Obviously you want to be about 300 pounds to stop the run. I think that's where, but if you're playing in a division, right? If you're playing in a division against somebody like the Texans, and we'll talk about them later, like they're going to throw the ball, right? So you want somebody who's going to have a pass rush. You're playing somebody like Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So they're not going to run the ball. Like they're going to pass 40 times. So Tonka fits in there as a 3rd down specialist, pass rush. I think he'd be all right. 2nd or 3rd day draft.
Yeah. And then from there, we're pretty sure everybody else is more like 3rd or on. We do want to give a little honorable mention here to Kai Kroger.
Hi.
Would love to see him.
What was that stat you showed? You told me yesterday.
Oh yeah, the hang time, baby. He got hang time. 5.6 seconds, which is well above the NFL average. Obviously, he's not up against NFL special teams quite yet. And we'll have to get used to kicking in some different environments. But I don't think it's crazy. I mean, a lot of kickers are getting old on their way out. A lot of coaches are looking for something on special teams that gives them something else. That kind of hang time gives you a lot of time to get down and hit that guy or run in a different way. Like when they kick and they kind of fake like the ball's over there, but it's over there and it messes with them and ends up in a possession.
Yep.
Like that's happening more often. I mean, I remember seeing that 2 or 3 times last year. I'd only seen that like once before that. So Special teams is always a way to get a leg up in one way or another. And that's how guys make the squad, right? So if they're showing something and running great plays and able to execute, I mean, we know that from Shane Beamer. We see that in college all the time. That is bleeding into the NFL more and more. So that's kind of fun. And I think there's opportunity. I hear the knock, and I'm sure you guys are going to come at us like, oh, a punter, who's going to take a punter? But we'll see. And if he does, I'll stand on it. If he doesn't, he's getting signed undrafted, or he's at least getting an invite somewhere.
So let me ask you, before we move on to NFL's like trade rumors and stuff like that and free agent rumors, let me ask you a question. 11 Gamecocks came to the Combine. How many are you getting drafted, do you think?
Well, when I run down this list, I want to say everybody. I want to say 11 for 11, but it ain't going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen either. I don't think it's going to be all.
Yeah,
11.
I mean, we're both of the mind that Kai might not. So there's one right there that's iffy. And if I'm iffy, I'm going to say it's a no, just to make it more interesting here. So I'm just going to go ahead and say no to Kai, but, we'll see. And then from there, I was asking about Rocket. We think Rocket's going to get drafted.
I think he's going to get drafted. Probably fourth round.
So he's in
round.
there. I think if we were highlighting not to pick or play favorites or anything like that, but I think, well, I'll start with this. O'Donnell Fortune did a good job at the Combine as well, and he showed out in his I forget if he was in the East West, the Shrine Bowl, right? And he showed out as the defensive MVP there. So I think that helped him a lot, and he did well in the Combine. So I'm going to give it to him. So I think that kind of leaves, and we kind of both were saying this, DeAndre Jules at D-line and Torricelli Simpkins. Those two, especially where Simpkins is the only O-lineman, and O-line wasn't necessarily something that we thought was like Carolina's best. I feel like he could get left out.
I definitely think I'm with you, Simpkins. I'm a little iffy on Kai or Bam Martin Scott. I think both those guys, one or both those guys fall out of the draft.
Well, and now that I'm thinking about it, technically this list of 11 does not include Kai, and I don't know if that's because they're special teams or considered specialists. So the actual 11, just to do it real quick: Rocket, Josh Simon, Simpkins, Hemingway, Jules, Kennard, Sanders, Knight, Martin Scott, Emanuri, Odell Fortune. So I think out of those 11, we're saying Jules and Simpkins. So that gets us down to 9. The only other ones, I mean, Bam Martin Scott is only the second linebacker for us. It's him and Knight. I mean, we know Knight's getting drafted. I want to say Martin Scott's getting drafted. So I think that's probably going to be it. I think we're going to say 9.
Yeah, I'm with you. 9-8. That makes sense. But kind of some other news coming in from, not to do a terrible segue, because obviously you're the man at this.
I'm the segue guy, riding in on my segue.
Former Gamecock wide receiver Deebo Samuel traded from the 49ers to the Commanders for a 5th round pick. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Oh man, I mean, right away makes a lot of sense. 5th round, little weird, but he's got a big contract. So when that big contract is there, you got to shift with the pick. Good on them for getting something, especially where he had a down year. You got to think there was more going on there. He didn't seem to like the training staff and his injury history. They had to get some money off the books for sure. San Fran has had a long window here, and they've been to a bunch of Super Bowls. They're definitely hanging some contracts. And look, they had some wide receivers develop. A fantasy football thing that I follow. Upper Hand Fantasy had a good breakdown of this, where basically like when Debo was hurt, Juwan Jennings steps up and Ayuk steps up. Now they got problems with Ayuk, so they'll figure that out. But there's opportunity there. Ricky Pearsall, so they got wide receivers there. I love this move to Washington. I mean, it's a big move for Debo from way West Coast to way East Coast, but he gets to go to Washington with a new ownership group, with a team that is humming, with a quarterback that is coming in also from the SEC. So both of these guys have played in big games for big teams in college and in pro. And in fact, Debo's played in a lot bigger games and brings some veteran leadership to that team. And you think about some of the other wide receivers they have, and now him on Washington, like this is this is big and good for them for getting it done. I'm sure there were some other teams in on this, right? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense for you could make the argument for both teams that they both kind of came out ahead, right? So Debo's, to your point, Debo's contract, 3 years, 71 mil, quite a bit, 58 million of it's guaranteed. I like Debo lining up against with Jaden Daniels. I think Daniels obviously rookie of the year, absolute stud. I like to see Debo Samuel stay healthy. I think his big knock is he's hasn't stayed healthy quite a bit, and I don't know if that's a combination of like him getting the ball and running the ball like 5 to 10 times a game in that offense, or and
Right.
also getting like 5 or 10 receptions a game. I don't think it's that. I just think that sometimes when you're a big a big wide receiver and you're aging, you're a physical
Yeah.
wide receiver. You're
Well,
gonna
I
get a
also
hit.
think
So
it's
I
the
think
way that
a fifth round pick I think is about market value for him. I think that
yeah,
makes
and
sense.
I do think it was the way that San Francisco was using him too. Before they had CMC, they were using him a lot as a
Yeah.
running back. And then even when they had CMC and he would go down, they would use him a lot too. I don't think Washington's going to do that as much. I don't think that's the plan. I mean, I think he could be in there doing some gadget stuff, but nowhere near as much, I don't think.
You get this you get the sense too that the 49ers are clearing up cap space
Oh, they have to.
for Purdy. You know what I
Yeah, they have
mean?
to. Not
Yeah.
just that, but Kittle and Purdy and
All the
CMC. And
You're
they're too
right.
long in the
That
tooth for too
window.
long. They've been to the dance too many times without
Yeah.
winning it that
You're
if
right.
they
That
can't
window
get
is
back
closing.
there soon,
That window is
yeah,
closing
it's
for
going to
all
be
those
done.
big guys.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
And if they can't afford him, there's a lot of places Purdy could go. So, and I love him, by the way. I mean, to be able to just constantly be able to talk about Mr. Irrelevant, it's like you can't even call it Mr. Irrelevant anymore because of how relevant it is. I kind of love that. But just a quick look at the depth chart there in Washington is interesting now because Terry McLaurin's still probably number one, true wide receiver. Scary Terry, love that guy. This opens up a lot for him. And then they
Yeah,
kind of
he's
list.
good for Daniels too, that guy.
Oh, I mean, this is just better for all of them. The only people it's bad for on Washington, I think, is we mentioned CMC. How about LMC? Luke McCaffrey, the other wide receiver there. He probably bumps down a bit now. The only question mark there would be their third wide receiver, Noah Brown. He's not so healthy, but they got other guys. They got their guy Zacchaeus from Atlanta. They got Dami Brown, who is flash deep. They got Jamison Crowder, who's long in the tooth too, but a slot guy. They got options there. And they got running backs too with Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, Jerry McNichols, Chris Rodriguez. They're deep at running back. So I think Debo can go back to doing what he does. He can obviously block too and help the running game. But yeah, I'm excited. I mean, if Washington wasn't fun enough to watch already, it just got more fun.
Yeah.
And the Niners didn't
It's-
lose a ton because they do have wide receivers.
Yeah, and
So,
I think it makes sense. That's it's a good move for both teams to get us started kind of in as
yeah.
kind of we see a little bit more interaction, free
Yeah.
agency coming
Two
up.
teams that might
We
not
s-
usually do a deal either. I mean, it's a new ownership group in Washington, so
yeah.
new relationships, and this is one of them. Washington and San Fran could be a thing.
So
That's kind of fun.
it's cool to see some of these storylines cards kind of start to develop. You actually brought up another one too, another quarterback potential carousel going in
Oh man, it's spinning, dude. It is spinning
in
around. Now, for
not
me,
both
it's
New York teams have
well,
some
yes,
things.
both New Yorks are doing things. The Giants finally have a quarterback under contract. They did re-sign Tommy Cutlets there to have a guy with the Italian thing, to have a quarterback to do something. So that's good. Who knows what the Jets are going to do? I'll be honest, Sam. Your Steelers are really interesting to me. I mean, they have two quarterbacks. The overall feeling is that Justin Fields is going to be the guy.
I want him back. Then now the Jets are looking to they might get him. The
Who
Jets might
Fields?
get yeah, they might they're making a move for Justin Fields apparently. But I so hope Fields stays in Pittsburgh. I
Yeah, I mean,
really
I
like
think either
him.
way, I think, for the youngsters out there, I think Fields is the guy that you want because he's got more time ahead of him. But Russell played well and seems to fit everything that Mike Tomlin wants to do. So it almost feels like an embarrassment of
He's not the
riches,
but he's not the future. Like he's not and he will only
but he
cost
gives
him
you enough
he
time
was
that you
paid
can
by
get the
he was
future.
paid, but I think Fields is the future. I really do. I think he knows how to win. He's really good for
Yeah.
that offense because he can slow the tempo down. He doesn't make
But good on
mistakes.
Tomlin the way he played this last season. He
Yeah,
played them both
maybe
to get Fields in there.
maybe because they ended up not winning a playoff game, so it didn't really pan out the way we wanted it to pan
No,
out.
that's
But
true. But there were other things there. Some of your wide receivers were kind of putting up fits. The running backs didn't really get going, and your division is good, dude.
But the
You
running
know?
backs were getting going under Fields. They were getting going under Fields. Don't
Yeah,
forget
they
that.
were, and that is interesting, and that does feel like Steeler football. So,
Yeah.
so that'll be interesting. Where I think where Russell Wilson goes tips a lot of other things, right? I mean, yes, could he go to the Raiders? He could. Pete is there now, so that could happen. He is not far in Pittsburgh to finish New York, but I feel like wherever he goes, other things go. I feel like, yes, New York, both New Yorks are looking at everybody, but they're looking at everybody, right? Like, do I really think that Aaron Rodgers
Yeah,
is going to
drop
be
a
a
couple
Giant?
names there for the Giants.
Yeah,
Yeah, Aaron
Aaron
Rodgers.
Rodgers, Sam Darnold. Look, Mariota's a free agent. Jameis Winston's a free agent. Look, the guys who aren't going anywhere, like Baker Mayfield, he's staying in Tampa, right? Friggin' what's his name? Kurt on Atlanta. Where does he end up? What happens there? I mean, there are a lot of quarterbacks moving around, and there are a lot of teams that need quarterbacks. I've even heard a lot, Sam, about Russell Wilson to the Titans of all places.
Could see that.
So now I don't. It doesn't make sense to me. The only thing that would make sense is they would want him for the first few games, and then if they can draft a quarterback, then he like Cam Ward or Shador could start later in the season. That is a good recipe for success. I would be down for that. Then Russell can teach them, but I feel like to get Russell, you're gonna
So they're
have to
just
sign
done.
him
So
enough.
the Titans are just done on Will Levis then, huh? Like they're just.
Titans have been a little wayward since they got rid of Vrabel, and Derrick Henry. I mean, Derrick Henry is
But they-
not there anymore.
Will Levis has some flashes. He could be okay. I mean, he has
He could throw deep, but other than
two or
that,
three of the worst plays from 2024 on his resume.
I mean,
but-
dude, between his mayonnaise commercials and him getting hit a couple times on the sidelines and the faces that he makes, I mean, I wish
Yeah.
we could throw those faces up. Those are ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's got a future somewhere, but I don't know if it's Tennessee. I mean, give me a Mason Rudolph sometimes, most of the time, over Will
I like
Levis.
Mason. I like Mason. I've liked
Yeah,
him
I do. He's
at
solid.
Pittsburgh.
He's another name out there.
In in honor of Buster, right? We got to talk something about the Packers. We're like,
Oh,
you
so
brought
you
this
want to
up
get off the
yesterday.
carousel now? You don't want to keep going with the carousel.
I'm just we said Aaron Rodgers. You got to say the other half of him. Like, where's
Well, one other thing I wanted to say there, because I did mention the name, is Sam Darnold to the Giants, I think is fine. Now I live in New York. My wife's a Giants fan. I talk to these people all the time, and the overarching thing is like, no, we don't want Darnold. He ain't the guy. Da da da. I don't know. Now I get it that he played for the Jets and he was sort of so-so in the New York market, so maybe just don't want anything to do with that. But in terms of quarterbacks who rehabbed, who did what they had to do, I mean, he had 2 bad games. That's it. Now, granted, one of them was a division game, one of them was a playoff game, and you want to win those games. But I'll tell you what, Sam Darnold is better than any quarterback they've had over the last few years. So I think that's fine.
I
But
actually think that would be a
yes.
good move too for the Giants. I think that you get Sam Darnold there. He's got some experience. I mean, obviously the experiment failed with the Jets, but the Jets are a terrible franchise.
And
Terrible
that was early in his
franchise.
career.
Yeah,
That
he
was
was
early
a,
in
he
his
was a
career.
rookie. He was a rookie.
Yeah.
He looks like he's grown a little bit under.
I mean, look at Gino. I mean, Gino's a perfect example. Like Gino was with the Jets. Look at what he is doing with Seattle. But I would also say that like you're getting value because if Sam Darnold doesn't lose that playoff game and whatever, he's valued much higher. So, and it's just that one game. So I feel like he's kind of a bargain with what you're going to get him for. So that's fine.
And we know
but then,
if there's one thing
yes.
we know about the Giants, it's they don't like to pay their players. So good with the bargain bins like that,
Oh
right?
man, yes.
Sorry,
And
Saquon. Sorry.
yeah, we'll get to him
sorry,
in a
Giants
second.
fans. Sorry,
Yeah, we'll get
Giants
to him in a
fans.
second. But yes, we were talking with Buster when we were doing our other episode the other day. He was excited about the idea about Devontae Adams going back to the Packers. I was a little mixed on that. I think the Packers are young and forging ahead anyways, but they do need wide receiver. Watson has always been banged up. They don't really have a number one. Maybe a veteran there helps settle things down and give you something more. And Devontae does seem to still have it. So we'll see what happens there. My basic take was don't fire everything for Devontae. Go for what you want to get. Maybe a Chris Godwin or someone like that, who I know a lot of teams are going to gun for. And if that doesn't happen and Devontae wants to do it for cheap, then yes, do that. But I don't think they should fire everything or throw a big contract at him, And
Yeah,
then
I think his days of having the max wide receiver contracts are over. I don't think he's going to get the same deal he got in Oakland. It's just in the same first deal he got, or his second deal he got in Green Bay. It's not
Yeah,
gonna happen.
no,
It's
and he's not going to get to
those
call the
days are
shots, and
those
he
days are
might not even
numbered.
be a
Those
number
days are
one,
over.
depending. Yeah,
He
like,
can get a Taco Bell though in his house. He can certainly do that.
not a problem. Not a
He's
problem.
already
Well,
got
I
that
mean,
done.
if he
Get
changes
that
teams and he's got to move, he's going to
get,
need to build a new Taco Bell. So,
get that extra fire sauce there, Devontae, when you're
yeah,
in Green
that's
Bay. It's
awesome.
awfully
That's
cold.
really good.
It would be
So,
interesting. It would be cool to see him though to end up as a Packer.
oh no, look, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if what he's saying
Yeah,
is, I want to be a Packer, I want to retire a
it'd be
Packer, I'll do
cool.
it for less. I see that you guys are killing it. I think we know it's going to be hard for the Lions to get back there because they lost their OC. The Vikings got to retool with JJ McCarthy, a new quarterback. The Bears don't have it yet. So, like, there's a lot of opportunity for Green Bay, much like Washington. Green Bay and Washington feel like very similar teams on very similar trajectories. And Washington getting Debo could be a lot like very similar to Green Bay getting Devontae back. You know, young team getting their groove on. But that being said, that's kind of all that's really happened there so far. We did have some big deals in terms of people getting re-signed, and this is interesting because the cap number got bigger, right? The cap number goes up from 255 to 279, gives teams more room. And to that end, we saw massive deals so far. Saquon with 2 years, $41 million, making him the highest paid running back. He earned every friggin' penny.
Hell yeah, he
Um,
did.
and, I'm hearing stuff maybe A.J. Brown is on the way out now because they can't, keep it all together. And that might be fine and good. That'd be awesome for the team that gets A.J. Brown. And, A.J. might want to get out of there anyways. It's Saquon's show. It's Jalen's, it's.
Yeah, I mean it's Hurts. It's Hurts' team. Like they'll give Saquon the money now, but you better believe Hurts is going to get re-signed with them in like 3 years. You better like 2 years. So
Yeah.
they got to make room for him for the guys that are going to be making giant contracts next year. But Hurts is going to be an Eagle for as long as he wants to be an Eagle. He's
for sure.
it's his team. It's his team.
Yeah. And obviously with the Super Bowl win and trying to repeat, keep the gang together,
Yeah.
Saquon's happy,
And I think I think Hurts and Saquon play very well together. I think they have a very good chemistry, and I think they generally want to keep this ride
And
going.
I think the other thing this does in the short term is like Eagles aren't really signing any of their running backs. I mean, Gainwell has done it for them. If anything, maybe they'd take a flyer on a draft.
I mean, it's not like Saquon's
late.
it's not like Saquon's getting worse.
No, but I'm just saying, do you invest anything else at running back at all in free agency?
I don't know, man.
think so.
I think you go draft.
Yeah, I think you draft someone way late that you take a
Sixth and
flyer on
seventh
that
round,
you like for special teams.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get that fifth round draft pick, running back position salary. Like that's what you do.
Brother.
That's
Not
what you
that
do.
I want the Eagles to succeed even further, but if they are listening, please.
Crosby, your boy Crosby got in a huge deal too.
Oh, dude, Max. Going Max, right? I mean, hurt last year, so weren't exactly sure what that was going to be. But yes, Max is the future of the Raiders if he isn't already, the main Raider. Huge deal, 3 years, over 106 million, 91 million guaranteed. He's the man. He's going to continue being the man. He's so much fun to watch.
They are a much different team. I know they don't win a lot. But they're at least competitive when he's in the lineup. Like the defense plays well. They're competitive.
Honestly, it feels like one of those teams, and I hate to say it,
they got rid of Antonio Pierce,
right? Because they're in Vegas, And while KC's doing what they're doing, are they really going to get there? I don't know. Now Denver's good. The Chargers are coming on. That's a hard division. That's a very hard division. But I feel like they're happy in Vegas. I think Pete Carroll will solidify things there. And he's got his centerpiece signed up on defense. So giddy up, Good for Max.
Hey, did the Raiders fired they got Pete Carroll, right? He's their
so they had fired, then they had their interim Antonio.
But then they hired him for the role. So he was the coach this year, and then he got fired for Pete Carroll, right?
And then they decided to go with Pete.
I'll tell you what, I'm really intrigued to see because Pete Carroll has a history of some really good defensive teams. I mean, you know what I mean? Like not just Seattle,
I would just question quarterback, right? Because that Aiden Hutchinson has been okay, but
maybe I agree.
Not there.
I agree with you. 100%. But I feel like Pete Carroll's a little bit of a whisperer there when it comes to NFL players. I think it could be interesting to see.
Could be a real reason.
Max Crosby at that contract. Max Crosby could have himself a really big year.
Contract Crosby.
Max contract Crosby.
track.
Yeah.
And then, one other quick one that happened just today. Christian Kirk, wide receiver, gets dealt from the Jags to the Texans for a sixth, which is interesting because it looked like they were just going to cut him. And
Yeah.
he's, a third wide receiver or a long wide receiver. And within the division, though, I think, puzzled me and you. You don't
Yeah,
see that. You
you
don't
don't
see Steelers,
see
Browns. You don't see Pats, Dolphins,
no, you don't see deals like that. If you do, it's usually because you don't want to trade somebody who could hurt you twice a year, right?
Yeah,
Like
twice, if not a
that's
third time. Yeah.
right. So you don't really see divisional rivals like that trading, but I mean it's a good deal for the Texans. I think it makes sense. If Debo is going to be a fifth rounder, you damn sure Christian Kirk is not going to be a
Yeah.
fifth
I mean,
rounder.
what this reeks of to me is that
Another injury guy.
Yeah, Jacksonville's got to go a little more conservative. They're going to run the ball a little more. They don't need to be that deep. Or they plan on taking a wide receiver in the draft anyway, and they get something, and they get another draft piece, which maybe they need, or they want to use to trade up or down. And then Houston really needs a wide receiver. I mean, at one point early last year, it looked like Houston had tons of wide receivers, but that Tank Dell injury
Yeah.
was serious. I mean, CJ Stroud was visibly upset and did not get right, really, for the rest of the season after that. And it didn't look that bad, but it was bad. And I don't even know that we're going to see Tank play, and that's tough because I like Tank a lot. But they're banged up across the board at wide receiver and tight end. So this almost reeked a little bit of like Houston is desperate for this, and they don't want to rely on a rookie because they got a lot of young players at wide receiver. Jacksonville don't need him, gonna cut him anyway, but Texans want to jump on it because they think he could get signed, off waivers. And they
I mean,
get him.
it's definitely a money move by the Jaguars. There's no other explanation. I mean,
Yeah.
Christian Kirk gets hurt as much as Deebo Samuel, if not more. But he's got a 4-year, $72 million contract, and I think 38 is guaranteed. So you cut him, all of a sudden you owe him a large amount of money. You don't cut him, you trade him, you get a 6th-round pick. Plus, everyone saw what the Jaguars were this year. They're in complete rebuild mode.
Yeah.
I mean,
you're
that
right. Doing
owner's-
that Trevor Lawrence contract, like Houston hasn't had to do that yet.
Yeah,
they're
they
a
don't.
couple years away
exactly.
from a CJ Stroud.
They still got
contract.
CJ
Yeah.
on the rookie contract. You know what I mean? So,
Very
Jacksonville's
similar to what
complete
Washington did.
rebuild
Washington
mode.
can take on Debo because they got young guys everywhere. Houston can take on Kirk because they got young guys everywhere.
Maybe that
Yeah.
Jacksonville Jaguars son, who's supposed to be the head football consultant or strategist or whatever the hell, chief football strategist, whatever the hell is.
At least it's not Urban Meyer anymore. Plus,
Maybe,
I gotta
maybe
stop
he's starting
everything.
to
I
wise
just gotta
up.
say,
Maybe
Sam,
he's starting to wise up and make some good decisions. Who knows?
Sam, I love you so much for the way you say Jaguar because I hear it as Jaguar, and I love that. I love
Jaguar.
I almost feel like we're talking baseball and like Mark Mug Jaguar.
I don't know if there's any Jaguar fans listening, but the Jacksonville Jaguars might be the least memorable franchise in all professional sports. Like
maybe because of the number of players from Clemson at this point.
I just forget about them all the time. Like they're a team. Oh yeah.
Houston and them.
The London Jaguars. Right?
That whole division is just kind of in the wind. Yeah. But otherwise, that's pretty much it so far for trades, rumors, carousels, cap, big deals. A lot more will be coming. We'll cover that more. Obviously, we'll have a whole draft episode. But me and Sam pulled it off, I think, buddy. We did one without Buster. I'm sure he's got something to say about it.
Come on back, Buster, because I can't be the expert analysis guy. I like making the comments and being funny. That's what I like. And stats.
You can, and you will, my friend. And you just did. So get it right.
We did do a good job, didn't we? We did a good job.
Yeah, well, hey, don't pat ourselves on the back. We got to finish it up. And that's going to mean another episode of Alumni
Game.
Cox
Game.
Combine.